Om Shanti and welcome to this special conversation with our guest from Bali, Indonesia. We have Sister Janki with us. She's been a Raj Yogi for the last 35 years. She's also been an ex-government servant with the government of Malaysia, and we're very happy to have her to discuss on the topic of creating harmony in family life. Om Shanti and welcome to the studio.
Om Shanti, thank you.
Majority of the time, earlier there was a time when family life was the life. But these days, a lot of the time, you hear that there are discords in the family. The divorce rate has really, increased, not just in the West, but in traditional cultures like India. What do you think is the root cause of the discord in family life these days?
Yes. Many years ago, those days, people lived in extended families. So they could get teachings from the elders. They could see how the elders cooperate with each other, how they harmonize, what reasoning they have to harmonize. And there was a lot to learn just by observing, just by living with the adults, just by living in an extended family, how to deal with seniors, how to deal with children. So there was a lot of learning as they were living there. So that was very good. And so people were able to adjust, able to learn, and able to get along. And there was very little conflict in the family. But nowadays, we have very small families, just the husband, the wife, and the children, and there is no adult figure, a senior figure, someone who they could look up to. And so each one just portrays his or her own tendencies or characteristic traits. And as there is no sort of preparing the self to adjust, preparing the self to harmonize, preparing the self to face, so there is conflict. So in a marriage, or even in any relationship, there is a lot of give and take. But no one is perfect, and no relationship can be built overnight. It's something that we grow into, we develop as we live together. And so the acceptance of each other, with each other's good points and bad points, it's very essential. But nowadays people don't have the time, the energy, and the willingness to understand themselves, let alone someone else. And so there is conflict, and there is a lot of misunderstanding and disharmony in the house.
You mentioned about the presence of elders,
Yes.
The guidance of elders. But there is a sort of a trend where people want to move out and live a life, have freedom. And it seems that in the quest of freedom, freedom is really lost. They become more and more entangled in their day-to-day lives. There's no one to sort of seek support from.
Yes, it's true. Freedom is a very nice word, and everybody wants to be free. We are born to be free. But freedom comes with discipline, with responsibility. So if there is no discipline or responsibility, there is no freedom. Because we can say that we are wild. Each one expresses his or her own, wishes, and there's no compromise. So is that freedom when there is so much of disharmony? So always freedom comes with responsibility. And when there's responsibility, there is learning, there is observation, there is give and take. But just freedom alone is very dangerous. So this is what we have to be aware. Like when people get married, they want to be happy. They want to be given everything. They want love. But can they give happiness to somebody? Can they give love to somebody? Can they be accepting to somebody? Can they accept somebody? So these things we never prepare ourselves for, and so that's what happens. Discord in the families.
You know, when we talk about living in the family, you have to live and, you know, have your people of different sanskars, different habits, and sometimes there's a person from different culture who joins your family. How to get along, that's the difficulty, where the power of adjustment is missing.
Yes, that's true, Hussein. Don't talk about different cultures. Even in the same culture, even between two people, there can be disharmony. For example, I am the eldest child, so I have the right to everything. My father's property, I am the owner. So it's like fixed in the mind. And so the second sibling, the brother, the younger brother or younger sister, has nothing. So even this can create a misunderstanding. Or I'm a boy and she's my sister, she's a girl, so boys have more rights than girls, misunderstanding. Or even between spouses, so someone earns more and that person becomes the boss or more authoritative, more assertive. So even small things within a family can create disharmony. What more if there is two different cultures getting together, two different people from very different backgrounds get together, there will be more differences to cope with. So there needs to be some kind of maturity that whatever it is, this is the person that has been chosen, and come what may, I will make it a success. So for that there has to be a little bit of sacrifice, a little bit of patience, a little bit of understanding, so many things. So a relationship is built. It's not like it grows overnight. So the more there is this feeling of growing and learning and understanding and accepting, then the relationship gets better.
You know, you talked about relationship getting better, and you also talked about, you know, if a person is earning more, you tend to become the boss.
Yes.
There was a time when there was one person earning and there were 10 people being fed from that.
Yes,
So now you have 4 people earning and still it is less. You see, there was a time when the resources, you know, the material things or the facilities were very limited, and all of it was shared with the siblings or the families or the extended family, and people tend to be more satisfied.
Yes.
Yet now you have, even a child has got an iPhone, there are different phones for a different family member, everything, everybody has got their different vehicles. The resources are more, but at the same time there is less and less communication and there's less and less harmony.
That's very true.
That means we've missed a point somewhere.
Somewhere we have missed the point. You see, all these modern gadgets and modern living creates greed, creates want, creates demand. And so there are more and more things needed to satisfy the self. But what happens is, in using all those modern gadgets, Michelle, for example, the handphone, we use the handphone. So we are attached to a non-living gadget, a non-living thing. We are communicating through that. And so there is no eye contact with a person, there is no communication between two people, there is no exchange of vibrations, of love, of understanding, of warmth, and people just talk to the father or the mother and say, I'm in school, I will be late, don't wait for me. So it's everything through the WhatsApp, you know, the messages. And so there is no communication. And so when
like the human touch is missing.
Really, it's really very, very scarce nowadays. Even to say good morning is such a rare thing to see, because people, they don't tell the parents, you know, children say, I'm leaving for school. They don't even say that. They just run off, and they don't say they'll be late. So communication is becoming less, and no SMS messages are going out. So this feeling of togetherness is lost. So we should bring that back. And so one of the things that parents can do is at least once a day, the family gets together to pray together, because the family that prays together stays together. And even if that is not possible, say each one belongs to a different belief system, at least eat together, because the family that eats together stays together. So there must be some kind of binding factor to bring the members of the family together, either in prayer or at the dining table. Somewhere they have to meet, or at least once a week, get together for a picnic. If there is no this togetherness, and each one has their own hobby, each one has his or her own hobby, then there's no togetherness. So to create this togetherness is so important, because once the family members, they learn to accept each other with their good points and the bad points. When they grow up and get married, they can use this attitude towards their partners. So the learning process is right from the family. It doesn't just start with marriage. So this is very important. I think it's lacking in most modern families, because each one has his or her own job and study patterns. Each one has their own full timetable that they hardly get together.
You know, you talked about togetherness, and I think it's a very important point.
Yes.
Many times, you know, people come up and they say that we are very lonely, and if you ask them, are you living alone? They're not living alone. So though you are living with people, you may not be with your mother or father, you may be with some friend,
Yes.
or you are with people, living with people, yet feeling lonely. So, you know, being alone, not a problem, is one thing, but being lonely, having the feeling of loneliness while living with the family, how to cope with it?
This feeling of loneliness comes when we feel that nobody understands me, nobody knows me, nobody accepts me, or nobody loves me. This feeling will come that I'm alone, I have no friend, or nobody wants me, or nobody cares for me. This sort of thing is something that we can overcome, because it's not a permanent kind of feeling. To have openness in communication. For example, say a child feels he's very lonely, even though he's in the family, he can tell the parents, why don't you talk to me, at least in the morning? Or why don't you spend some time with me? Why don't you read to me? Or why don't you take me out? Or why don't you tell me your stories? Openness in communication, just speak out your feelings, so that that barrier is broken. But sometimes we feel it's not possible. But then we have another outlet. Prayer is a very good thing. So when we pray, or we come in front of God in our prayers, or when we think of God, so that's another kind of companionship that we can build. And that companionship is forever. So wherever we go, whatever we are doing, in whichever place we are, at whatever time we are, when there's this feeling of loneliness, we can just have a heart-to-heart conversation with the divine. So that feeling of loneliness disappears forever. But even with people, if there is like open communication and there is frankness, so that can be overcome. So don't let it grow within the self, but to explain, to tell what's happening to the person inside, and to get things cleared. It's very important, communication. But the problem in today's world is people don't communicate with each other. They feel that maybe I'm very different from everybody else, or they might think that I'm not friendly or not warm, and what will they think of me? And so all these kind of obstacles we create in the mind, and we keep our sorrow and our loneliness within the self. So that should be really taken care of, in the sense that we can speak up, whatever it is. Because we are human beings, we have our good points, we have our weak points. So why not speak it up and speak it out and tell people, well, this is what I am, can you help me?
Very beautiful and very important point you raised about communication and about sharing. Sometimes if if you are feeling that you're not being looked after, you can share it and communicate in a way. But very important thing is how you communicate, I think. Sometimes the communication is filled with a lot of remorse or anger or suppressed feeling. So when you are actually talking to the other person, it's a burst of anger that you're giving. And therefore the words are minced with these emotions, and it's not communicated well. So to be stable, and I think that is also important.
That's very true, Hussein, because when we communicate, we want cooperation, not anger. When we communicate, we want understanding and not rejection. When we communicate, we want help and not indifference. So the way we communicate, for example, you are my mother, and how much time do you spend with me, mother? So can we have a weekend together? Maybe we can go to the beach together. I want time with you, mother. I want to be with you. You're my mother. If I don't ask you, to whom else can I go to? So this kind of feeling belonging, the feeling of belongingness, the feeling of wanting has to be expressed. And for example, we say, the mother says, sorry son, this weekend I've got an appointment, but next weekend I'll take you out, and I promise you, you'll get an ice cream and we'll eat pizza outside. Okay? So that way the mother can counteract the son's disappointment when she says no. She says, sorry, not this weekend, next weekend, but I'll give you this extra. I'll give you ice cream and we'll go for pizza. So that boy feels good, that son feels good. So the mother also has to learn to communicate. And she says, I'm very busy, when am I free? So that way you cut off the son from further communicating. So this is important.
You mentioned about the companionship of God, and you have been meditating for the last 35 years. You're also a mother yourself, a mother to two grown-up children. What has been your experience with the the experience of your companionship with God? Because for many, many people, it's difficult for them to have a communication or companionship with the Supreme, because they can't see Him. And this is why they say we have to depend on other people, and of course that's not working out. So if I'm have a communication with God, if I made Him my friend, my companion, there is no loneliness, there is always that fulfillment of the companionship. Tell us, through your experience, what have you felt in your companionship with God?
You see, when we communicate with people, there is a relationship, mother and son, husband and wife, brother and brother, or brother and friend. There is a relationship, and in that relationship we communicate with each other. And so we need many, many different relationships to give us this feeling of fulfillment, that we have parents, that we have friends, that we have all relationships. So it gives a feeling of fulfillness. So in the same way, when we speak to God, or when we think of God and communicate with Him in our own silent way, we can also have all these different relationships with the one, depending on what we need at that time. A father figure for advice, a teacher to learn, a friend to pour out the feelings of the heart, or a lover to say that let's get together and have a chit-chat. So all relationships are fulfilled in that one relationship with God.
How do you do it in your practical life?
You see, whenever we are by ourselves, like I am having a shower or I am getting ready to go out, I'm alone in my room. So in that aloneness, I speak. I said, now I'm using this attire, you like it? I'm going out with this person for this purpose, so come along. Or I'm going to do some shopping, so help me to choose. So this very, very simple thoughts brings God together. This very, very simple way of thinking brings Him close, because we always feel that towards God we have to have a special time, we have to have cleanliness, a bath, and the fixed time to talk to Him. So that's formal prayer, and it's very good. But even informally, wherever we are, whatever we are doing, we can still have that companionship, and this gives a feeling of constant, sustainable, long-term relationship with God. And so there's formal prayers and there's informal companionship. And so there's never the feeling of loneliness. And the other thing is, God never talks. He's so silent. And so I learned to be silent also, to communicate with Him through my thoughts. And this silence really gives us some kind of an inner power to listen to people. So when somebody is talking to me, expressing their sorrow, I can feel what they're feeling. I can empathize with them. I can understand them. And my listening becomes more sharp, more understanding, and more close. So even our relationships with people get better when we just think of God and speak to Him in silence and feel His presence in silence. We feel His presence. That helps us in our communication with people, and we can get along better. So relationship with one, it embraces relationship with all. Harmony with one gives harmony with all. Love for one gives love for all. So there's so much of benefit in meditation. So meditation is silence. Meditation is silent communication. Meditation is pouring out the heart to the one in total silence, in love. Not in sorrow, not in anger, not in asking or begging, but saying, I am never alone, you are by my side. So I'm okay. That sort of feeling gives you that kind of strength, that happiness.
It's a wonderful conversation we've had, Sister Janki. And very important thing you said, that because God is silent, and I have to be silent in order to communicate with Him, in order to, sort of download what He's trying to give me.
Yes.
And it need not be something very complex. It need not be something which is very big, It could be very simple day-to-day things that can get and bring God's presence into my life. So thank you very much for this beautiful, experiential sharing of bringing about harmony in family life. And as we're wrapping up, quickly if you could share a mantra that people can keep in mind in order to have a very harmonious and happy family life.
We are never alone if we can talk to ourselves. So always look at yourself and talk to yourself. How am I feeling today? Lonely? No. I am my own friend. So I keep my friendship with me. I say nice things about me. I keep my courage and my love and my faith in myself. and I learned to become strong in myself. And you have another option. You can also talk to God in silence. It need not be a big mantra or a prayer, but you can just say, I'm going to do this job, stay with me and supervise me or stand by me, stay with me so that we can get the job done together. So it's not one person doing it, it's two. And you'll enjoy that companionship with the divine. It's very easy. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the tip, and thank you for coming and giving us your time.
Thank you, sister.
Om Shanti.
Om Shanti.